Hey there, Skeletor here, back at you with another comic book haul. This week we're looking at X-Men number 3, NYX number 2, Frankenstein number 1, Amazing Spider-Man 56, TMNT Black, White, and Green number 4, Chasm number 1, and Ultimate X-Men number 6. Let's kick this off with Ultimate X-Men number 6, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. I was expecting a lot more. The team has finally come together for the most part. We still don't have like a Wolverine, got a Cyclops. We find out about the cult called the Children of the Atom and how a couple of the kids' parents belong to the cult. And also our bad guy, who's essentially the Shadow King, is a big part of the cult. He's allegedly the chosen one. He decides to confront the group, the quote-unquote X-Men, and as everybody gets ready to do their thing, Armor jumps in there first, and she actually manages to like yank him through the shadow and to wherever the hell she is, and then, I don't know, instead of going to a hospital, he goes back to the cult, and I don't know, it wasn't... Out of 6 issues so far, this was the first time I feel like this was a weak story. Normally Ultimate X-Men is like top pick of the week. It feels short, there's no real teamwork even though there should be, you know, an actual X-Men team by this point. But the premise of the Children of the Atom cult, or cult of the Children of the Atom, whatever. That's interesting. Out of 5 I'd give this a 2, maybe a 3. I'm gonna lean more towards 2. Yeah, 2 out of 5. Next up is X-Men number 3, again written by Jed MacKay and drawn by Ryan Stegman. I won't lie, the A-plot for this is basically just a giant dick measuring contest between Cyclops and the military. Meanwhile, the military secretly breaks into the X-Men's compound and, tries to blow up Cerebro, but the X-Men manage to stop him. The artwork is, still solid. It's very detailed, highly stylized. Oh, and question of the month. Where did you first encounter X-Men? For me, it was the 90s cartoon. What about you? Let me know in the comments. And we get to find out a little bit more about Temper, who's the new chick who can control ice and fire. I don't know. She's okay. Not great. And at the very last page, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with Cyclops here, but I'm hoping this isn't another case of, oh, let's make a hero more relatable by making them have panic attacks. I'm gonna say again, this is probably 2 out of 5. I guess it does some world building, but it's not really, I don't know, it didn't drag me in. The art's fine though. And next up is Chasm number 1, written by Steve Fox and drawn by Andrea Broccardo. When Ben Reilly became Chasm, he lost all of his defining memories and, by extension, his morals. With his girlfriend, Hallows Eve, at his side, Chasm finds himself with lots of power, no responsibility, and the freedom to do whatever he wants. If only he could figure out what that is. Meanwhile, Kane Parker has heard about his fellow clones turned to evil and decided it was time for a brotherly heart-to-heart, or a fist-to-face if their previous meetings are any indication. This whole thing just sets us up with where Ben and Janine have been since the last time we saw them. They stopped some teens from getting attacked by monsters, just so that they could mug them. And then somehow Ben gets brain hijacked by somebody. We'll find out who it is at the end of the issue, but it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's not really explained here. It's not great. And then we catch back up with Kane, who's crawling through the sewers, or looking for Ben. And we see that he comes upon the scene that Chasm was at a little while ago, where Ben was. The people he mugged are web-tied to the ceiling, and most of the creatures are dead. I doubt they would reintroduce Vermin just to kill him right here, but Kane mentions that he doesn't have spider sense. That's one of the few things he doesn't have. I kind of forgot about that part. But his suit does allow him to go invisible, so he gets out of there. We find that Ben and Janine have taken up residence in a abandoned church, and honestly it just feels nice to see them having an okay relationship and being, well, it's not okay, but it's nice to see them happy. And we found out that the mind hijacker is Druid of the Eternals. Honestly, this whole issue kind of feels like the B team as far as the cast of characters. The art's fine. I've got no real problems with the art. Overall, it's a good start. It just feels like they're not allowed to use anyone important, and they may in fact be using this what is it, a mini-series to kill off a few characters, which I'm hoping isn't really the case, but, you know, Marvel might be trying to clear house, so we'll see. Out of 5, I'd give this 3. I like the art enough, I'm going to say 3.5, maybe? That's a 3. That's a 3. Next up is Ninja Turtles, Black, White, and Green. It's issue 4 of 4. This is, I believe, the end of the anniversary stuff. Again, it's a collection of short stories by different writers. The first one is Legends, story and art by Lee Garbett. I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. Second story is Shredder Gets Caught on Things by Chris Condon, and art by Carson Thorne. Does This Android Dream of Electric Sheep by Jeremy Holt, and art by Sebastian Perez. And finally, The Book of Splinter, story and art by Patrick Gleason. Honestly, they're all good stories, but the best one is Legends, which is Splinter telling a bedtime story to baby turtles. And then, as we go through the story, we find out that there's also a woman at the other side of town who's telling a bedtime story, the same bedtime story, to her daughter, and that she was saved by the turtles at some point earlier tonight. Shredder Gets Caught on Things is definitely the funniest. It's a short collection of times Shredder got his butt whooped, and each one takes place in a different continuity, like the original comics, the 80s cartoon, the 2000 series. Android's Dream, I keep forgetting there's the main comics continuity has Donnie basically become a robot and Raph loses an eye. It gets weird. It's Donnie coming to terms with his robotic life. And the Book of Splinter is, I guess, Splinter's teachings, giving an android a sense of morality. Again, some of these stories were better than others, or I should at least say I liked them a little bit more. Like, one was obviously a much funnier story, one was serious, one was a little, heartwarming. Considering this is the final issue of the Black, White, and Green special anniversary stuff, I'm gonna say it's a solid 4 out of 4. Next up is Amazing Spider-Man number 56, with the main story by Zeb Wells and art by John Romita Jr. And there's also a backup story in here called Proxy, written by Zeb Wells and art by Andreas Genolat. I'm murdering names here. The main story itself is just Peter tying up loose ends, or I should say Zeb Wells tying up loose ends. He started a whole thing with Tombstone like 2 years ago. They touch on it every once in a while, but him and Peter keep getting distracted by other things, and I get there was a vampire invasion, that was a company-wide thing, everybody got involved in that, but something should have been done sooner here. As the new Kingpin of New York, Tombstone knows that if he goes and finds Peter Parker can bring him to Spider-Man. There's a little bit of a discrepancy there, and they get into a fight. Right when you think Zeb Wells would just have Pete get his butt handed to him again, suddenly She-Hulk and Luke Cage, who is currently the mayor of New York, show up and kick the crap out of Tombstone. After that, we get a court date, and Tombstone's going to jail. Well, he's not going to stay away forever. And in the backup issue, Proxy, again, we're just tying up more loose ends. As I mentioned, a couple videos ago, there was that fight between Rhino and the other chick. She showed him how to get on a dating app. In this issue, we jump back in time by 1 week. We see him on a date with a woman, and she confesses she's got a thing for supervillains. That's one loose end either being tied up or it is now tied up. Outside, we've got Spider-Man and She-Hulk beating the crap out of Bulldozer. Spidey reveals he has evidence that can put Tombstone in jail, and She-Hulk is like, nah, you're a vigilante. That's not going to hold up. And honestly, when is he a vigilante and when is he an Avenger? What's the distinction here? We jump over to the court case of Ned Leeds, who is now found innocent of being the Hobgoblin, so that's yet another loose end being tied up. And Peter shows up to talk to She-Hulk and reveals, oh yeah, no, Spider-Man sent me. He says because I'm a citizen and he's a vigilante, I can help. And they make a little plan, and that's revealed how She-Hulk and Luke Cage showed up to save Peter's butt earlier. Then we cut to, a dinner between Peter, MJ, and Paul. I hate Paul. Deep down, Peter hates Paul. That was part of the original Goblin issue with them. And this whole thing is just showing us that he had a life in a different reality before he ended up here, because his dad decided to become some weird avatar of some Mayan god of math. And he's trying to make things right, which is weird because the people from your universe aren't the people from this universe. So why are you this is a guilty conscience and you're wasting money, and I don't know what this is. I feel like this is Zappos trying to give some kind of closure here. Oh yeah, and then like the last 4 pages are every single Spider-Man cover from start until modern day, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna take some time and check those out. Honestly, this whole thing kind of feels like it should be a 3 out of 5, but because you decided to have other artists jump in, and there's that whole thing of every cover ever in the back, I'll bump this up to a 4. There's enough stuff here. I can shut up and be happy. Next up is NYX number 2, written by Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly, with art by Francesco Mortorino. Issue 1 was all about Kamala, and we got a glimpse that X-23's out there doing Wolverine stuff, and this issue is just all Wolverine stuff. Kind of like how they do in Punisher. It's all inner monologue, kind of like a detective's diary narration, whatever. Gets into an underground mutant club. We meet someone whose, I guess, mutant power is the ability to hack anything electronic, like a phone or a camera or streetlights. She pretends to not be Wolverine and be someone called Scratch, goes on a little bit of a crime spree, and when we finally get to meet the boss, it's someone named Mr. Friend, who, as it turns out, is a literal puppet being puppeteered by Mojo. And I gotta say, I did not see Mojo coming. That completely came out of left field. Also, he beats the living hell out of X-23. She makes an escape, and then you'd think she would go and find the X-Men, or at least get Kamala and somebody else, but no. She goes down to the nightclub, and while Kamala is there with a couple of, I guess you would call them junior X-Men, she just decides to go dancing instead. The very end I found a little bit baffling, but overall, I'd say this was really good until the last page. I didn't see Mojo coming, the art is solid, 4 out of 5. And finally, the top pick of the week, issue 1 of Frankenstein, written by Michael Walsh. Oh, actually written and drawn by Michael Walsh. And I have to say, this entire thing really plays with light and shadow amazingly well. And honestly, the whole thing reads and feels like the original black and white Frankenstein movie. And in fact, there's a lot of dialogue ripped right from it to the point where I feel like there are entire screenshots in here that he just, free-handed. I'm gonna say right off the top of my head, this is about a half hour's worth of movie into one comic book. The difference is that the night Frankenstein went to go dig up that corpse at the start of the movie, there was a child visiting his father, and the corpse Frankenstein dug up was his father. The kid follows the wagon with the corpse back to the castle, and everything you would see from that movie is kind of shown from a slightly altered angle because the kid is watching it from behind a desk or around a corner or something. It's honestly a really inventive way to go. And once the kid realizes what happens, he tries to kill the doctor, but Fritz stops him. And that's also another touch that I absolutely love. We don't get Igor, because I don't think Igor showed up until like the 3rd or 4th movie. We get Fritz. This is great. I would say this is 5 out of 5. I'm hoping issue 2 keeps this pace and keeps things going. I like this. 5 out of 5. I've been Skeletor, and those are my picks for the week. Like, subscribe, stay safe, and if you don't get caught.